The United States military has taken a new approach towards recruiting Gen Z members, and that approach is beautiful women. So you can't hear it in the video, but she's making a TikTok along to music. This is a woman who is a member of the United States Army. So that was TikTok user Hey Lujan, who also is known as Lujan, or you might have known her as PSYOP Girl. And she's not called that without good reason. She is literally a PSYOP. Days reported that Lujan is a self-described psychological operations specialist for the United States Army, whose online presence has led to countless memes speculating that she is a post-ironic PSYOP meant to recruit people into the United States Army. Lujan, who's actually employed by the US Army PSYOPs division, posts countless TikToks and memes that play into this. So let's take a look at one of her TikToks where she is significantly more explicit in her recruiting efforts.
You guys don't need to commit to college. Don't commit to college. Be a farmer. Be a farmer. Be a soldier. Be a coal miner. Be a factory worker. Be a lumberjack. Don't go to school. What? Oh, you want to be a metaverse product designer. You
know, I'm gonna be honest. I'm feeling pretty good at my choice to go to school instead of selling my body to the United States military, so I could make TikToks for them.
It's all in the pitch. It's all in the pitch. Wow, that's wild, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think this will work?
Probably. Ray, guys are pretty one-dimensional, I have to say. You may have discovered that by now. So you throw a shiny object in front of us, we generally will go for it.
You know, I went to a high school that had heavy recruiting in it. I'm also Gen Z. I could say that the recruiting didn't work on me. But that type of recruiting was just a guy with big muscles bringing in a pull-up bar, setting it up in the lunchroom all day, and challenging people that walk by to a pull-up competition. A little different than this.
Yeah, that's an odd pitch.
Yeah.
Not quite as hot a pitch, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, this is not the only way the military has attempted to reach out to Gen Z. Last year, the Army allocated millions of dollars to recruit Twitch streamers to make the Army look more appealing. The Army even has its own esports team, which was founded in 2008 after the Army missed its recruiting goal for the first time in 13 years. And you might remember that because AOC introduced a bill to prevent the Army from streaming on Twitch, but the bill was defeated. But their efforts aren't working. Let's just take a look at this NBC News report from September of last year.
21 years ago, the September 11th attacks led to a surge of patriotism. Nearly 76,000 men and women joined the active duty Army over the next 12 months. Now, more than 2 decades later, the Army is struggling to attract new recruits among a younger generation that wasn't even born when the US was attacked. US military officials tell NBC News this has been one of the worst years for US military recruiting since Vietnam. With just 2 weeks left in the fiscal year, the Army has only recruited about 2/3 of what it hoped.
Good. I'm glad this is happening to the Army. I'm glad that they're not coercing under false pretenses young people into joining them. I'll just say, and then Mark, I'll let you jump in on this. We got some more, but you know, it's all funny. But I got to say this: I grew up in an area that had a really high undocumented population. One of the tactics that military recruiters would use was they would promise, you know, these people who were undocumented, these young people who were undocumented, or they had undocumented family, that if they did their 4 years, they did their service, they joined up, that afterwards they would be able to get citizenship for them or for their family members. And at least 2 people I know were deported after serving the United States military and being made these promises, deported. And it happens a lot. You know, this is of course, I think, a significantly less offensive tactic for recruiting, but I'm glad that their numbers are down, Mark.
And there are those who have benefited from the military, I know, but I think what you're talking about is we saw a spate of it during the Trump administration, where those who helped the U.S. and taken gunfire for the U.S. and have risked their lives for our country and who needed help with immigration, they're orphaned. It's really what happens, sadly, with so many who have paid all kinds of prices associated with PTSD and other traumatic injuries as a result of their service. And then they are treated to nothing in the way of benefits along the lines of what they're promised when they come back to live and try to integrate themselves into life in America from whatever overseas theater they may be returning from. You see the honestly, and I think it's getting out, and one of the reasons that their numbers are down, you see the toxic chemicals and the toxic smoke and there's burn pits, et cetera, that these troops are exposed to worldwide. And so it's no wonder that these numbers are down. You see that they essentially, when it comes to toxic dumping and chemical exposure, they have little to no regard for people who are involved in the military. And so as I think social media exposes this, and even mainstream media, which really is in the pocket of the military. If you look at Sunday football, there are those jet fighter overflies, and the military is celebrated and fetishized in some ways, and on some level in a lot of these NFL games and a lot of sporting events because it is machismo and all of that. Despite all of that, as the word gets out about all these things I just mentioned, and at the way the military lets down those who serve, it's no wonder their numbers are down. So yeah, they need to get creative. They need to, this is insanity on some level, but they need to get some TikTok influencer or whatever to spin a new web to boost their numbers.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right when it comes to social media. Especially when it comes to leaving the military and what happens afterwards, because it's harder to hide the fact that they don't care about you once you're out, that they're not providing you with the services that they promised, that you actually are not better positioned than a lot of other people to go into that job market. Particularly, I graduated high school in 2016. So as I was graduating college, my friends who joined the military were getting out after their 4 years. And because of when they joined, they were leaving right as the pandemic was starting, and they were given nothing. A lot of my friends work as Amazon drivers through third-party companies. They have no benefits. They have very tough lives now. And, they are resentful of the fact that the promises that were made to them were not kept, that they weren't given these advantages upon leaving.
Were they offered financing for any of their education or any of these things? That oftentimes the military can be useful for that.
Yeah, so they have, some of my friends have went back to community college, but there is it's tough to transition from that rigid structure of the military back into civilian life. And they really weren't giving them, especially with COVID, any prep for it and trying to help them adjust so that they could get into the swing of, being back in school as opposed to their structured work days. So it took them some time. Some of my friends didn't go back to school, but they have that option. But I think it's a less attractive option for recruiting now. What with the idea of student loan forgiveness from the government without having to sell your soul for 4 years to get it, just sort of up in the air, and the student loan repayments just paused indefinitely. I think it's definitely made it a tougher sell to focus on free education wherever you want to go or whatever, when we have the potential for Biden to do it himself.
That's an interesting point too. I hadn't even considered that you don't need the military anymore necessarily to pay for an education. I understand that there are careers in the military, and if you really are interested in a career in the military, that there might be a life for you there. But for the kind of hit it and quit it nature of most of the pitches, which is just to get them in, get them a haircut and throw them over in Camp Lejeune or wherever. That's I think that's the lion's share, and for them and for those people who are searching for that lifeboat, it can have some holes in it. I think it can be disappointing.
Yeah, and I just want to say here, I'm about to graduate law school. I've got one more semester left this spring. So I've actually been receiving a lot of recruitment from military, not in the same way that these people are reaching out to people. Obviously, no one's sending my law school email videos of e-girls on TikTok, but I'm getting recruited by JAG. So doing military law. And
I was going to ask you if you want to be a JAG. What's the story on that?
Absolutely not even a little bit. But they've been hounding me a bit because they need attorneys. But I have no desire to learn an entirely different type of law after I've already graduated law school. But I'll say their efforts, they suck. They sent me an email with 3 different fonts in it. And I was like, this looks professional. This looks like it's coming from the United States military. And then their offers, I'm sure they have a great benefits package or whatever, but they were like, we'll give you $5,200 for 3 months of intense training. I was like, that is a horrible, horrible offer. And then they're like, well, then we'll give you a $70K salary a year to do this, but you also can be relocated at a moment's notice. But the one kicker that they included in the email as a benefit to joining was that you get to meet President Joe Biden. I was like, I don't think that's enough for me to sell my body and soul to the Department of Defense.
Well, on the money, Ray, they don't have a lot of money, the military. You got to really give them a break on that. All right. So this thing with the font size and that the compensation is not high enough. I mean, cut them some slack. I mean, if we finally could step up in this country and give the military a budget, maybe they could appeal to people like Ray.
Yeah, the economy's tough and no one's feeling it harder than the United States military. Okay, but I would say this e-girl strategy for recruitment has apparently gone global. Here is a member of the IDF who calls herself Gun Waifu. That's a great look for a member of the IDF. It really disarms the 7-year-old Palestinian children right before she guns them down between the eyes.
Is that a real person, or is that that's some kind of, it looks almost anime-ish?
No, she is a real person, and she is a real member of the Israeli Israel Defense Force. And I'll just say, her TikTok is almost exclusively videos of her dancing from the back, which I don't really understand that strategy because their service is mandatory in Israel. Who is she recruiting? Yeah. They gotta join.
It's interesting that the last thing I'll say about this is it's interesting that the numbers spiked so enormously after 9/11. And we ended up really in a ridiculous war in Iraq, horrifying, and I was screaming it from the rooftops before it ever began. So were a lot of other people. I mean, I wasn't special in that regard, but I'm just saying you could see it coming is my point. And Afghanistan, the endless war that continued. There is no real clarion call to people who want to make a difference, and they end up becoming, I think, wrapped up in sort of a domestic terrorism type thing. That's what I think that oftentimes those who might have, and again, I haven't road tested this theory in any kind of way. I have no data to support it, but there are a lot of people who are ready to suit up and be part of the military to fight for America. Now, I think the fight for America, increasingly people associate with some kind of internal war that they need to fight, a fight against, and I'm talking about a military fight in joining a militia in this country. And that is disturbing as well. So I think the ripple effects of this whole militarism and how it's manifested itself in modern day America, I think it's troubling.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point too, because you do see like the increase of people joining groups like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers or 3%ers or whatever. And then you have pundits like Tim Pool who's screeching about civil war every single day. And I think it's a more attractive fantasy also because they know for the most part that there's not a real battle coming. They can fantasize about this war. They can play soldier and they know that they're probably not going to actually be put in any sort of danger or harm, or there's not going to be actual gunfire going on, and they can pretend that they are members of the Marines or the Army or whatever, and play soldier all they want without having to go through the consequences of it. And I think it's really been fueled by these right-wing figures who, if push did come to shove, wouldn't lift a finger, against the United States government and the military, but love to foment this outrage and pretend that there's this imminent civil war.
Exactly. I think that's so well said. You can still go home and, watch the playoffs, the NFL playoffs this weekend, while you can wear camo during the week and, run through some exercises and shoot off some weapons. I mean, this is the perfect environment now. You risk nothing. You have your cushy life, but you get to play soldier.
Yeah, exactly. Your mom can still make you your chicken nuggets for dinner when you get home from wrestling with the boys in the field.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.